Seth and Tori bought land for $237,000 in 2021, and it's now worth $32 million in 2025 because they've built a short-term rental business on top of it. And they're here to help you take your short-term rental business to 7 figures. Their experience at Bolt Farm has 2,500 5-star reviews, $700 average daily rate, and 100% direct-to-consumer off Airbnb with 93% occupancy. If you're at all interested in short-term rentals, you don't want to miss this. So I got invited by my financial tax strategy person, David Bull. He's been helping us for like 6 years. And we had a phone conversation a couple months ago, and that led him to inviting me to this mastermind. And it was led by a guy who leads the Real Brokerage and another guy named Aaron Stokes, who actually has a coaching program for auto mechanic shops. But the whole theme of it was really focused on kind of like being a better person, like higher level, looking at your P&L, communication, like leadership. That was really kind of the main piece of it. And it was them two teaching rather than everyone kind of contributing, but it was really cool. And we were both there. Tori and Seth, have you guys been there before? That was my first time.
We have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been a part of that mastermind group for over a year now. And it's probably one of the first ones I joined. I think we were late to the party on how powerful mastermind groups are and how much they can compress time.
Mm-hmm.
But now, we're in several because of what the results that we've seen, like when you can learn from people who have been there and done that, that is the absolute cheat code, because I read this the other day, like poor people will trade time for money, but like rich people will trade money for time. Like when you can get years of your life back just by going to the fountainhead, the expert in that field and learn from them, like you'd be crazy not to if you've got the money to do it.
It's
right.
So undervalued though. And so many people are very reluctant, including myself. Like I joined Collective Genius as a mastermind. I'm in with David. And I joined that, but it was after I'd already been doing wholesaling for, I don't know, it was over a year. And I didn't know the value that it was going to bring to the table for me. But I did know they said $15,000. I'm like, there's no way. That first off, Megan's probably not going to allow me to do this. But she was not the hurdle. She was the one that was like, no, you should do it. And then everything became easier. And then the growth from that point was accelerated. And I've always told people, I'm like, you got to get in a room full of people that are where you want to be. That's how you grow.
Absolutely. And I think it depends on your starting point. Like for me, I grew up in one of the poorest parts of South Carolina, and my parents were like bootstrappers. They grew up poor, and everything was like, no, that's too much. We can do that ourselves. So they were very like self-reliant, which is admirable. And it's carried us a long way.
And by poor, just to give you guys a picture of this, Seth told me the story and I still can't get over it. They were so poor that when he was young and growing up, his parents told him that when the ice cream truck drives by and if it's playing music, that means that they're out.
No way.
Just to give you some context.
Oh, man.
I still remember the first time I had a steak at a restaurant because like that was not in the cards for our family. And it was just like, the most tender, juicy, amazing steak. And I, like for years after that, I thought that the best steak in the world was at Denny's. until I experienced better and knew better. And so I think it was definitely a hurdle for us where I just had this mindset, like, we'll do it ourselves. We'll bootstrap this. We'll do it ourselves. But man, I think that's the mindset unlock that it takes to actually join a mastermind group or get coaching from someone who can help save you time, is that until you've witnessed, like, man, if I spend $15,000 or whatever it is on this group to join it, like, will I get a return on that investment? And for us, we're seeing like returns in the multiples of like 10x returns on those investments.
But it's also a matter of follow through too. Like you can go and sit in a room full of people and then sit on everything that they've talked about. There's an element and a level of like you sit there and you grasp and fight for all these ideas, but then going and implementing them and doing something with them, which doesn't take a lot of energy once you know how to do it. It's just taking that action.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's where you get your big return. It's like, okay, you've learned all this, now go and do something with it.
Seth and Tori, I would wonder if you could tell us an overview of your business in about 30 seconds, just for those that aren't familiar.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, so together we run Bolt Farm Treehouse. It's a mountaintop luxury outdoor resort in Tennessee focused on reconnection. We help couples reconnect with nature, themselves, and their purpose. And so what that looks like, it's a 55-acre retreat on top of a mountain with luxury tree houses. We're actually inside one right now, domes and mirror cabins, and we're about to open our wellness haven. So the property also has a spa, and the wellness haven, it's insane. It's like Disneyland meets your dream spa, the water circuit with everything from, cold plunge, hot spring, sauna, steam room, all of that on top of a mountain.
Yeah, we have a view of 3 states right now. I wish, we could show you both. It's incredible.
Yeah. So we build and operate this resort. And then most recently, we're now teaching people how to do what we do, because we've been in the short-term rental industry for about a decade now. And for the last, 6 years, we would be asked on a regular basis, how in the world do you get 94% occupancy? How did you, how were you able to manage getting away from Airbnb and doing all your bookings directly? People are like scratching their heads, and, how'd you get featured on Netflix, Forbes? Like it's crazy. Like we are in a small, rural, remote area. It makes no sense. But the power of brand and an exceptional offering. And so now we teach others how they can do that too.
That's amazing. Is there any tips and tricks you could share
A lot
on
of
this
hard
podcast?
work. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a lot. And I would say,
Yeah.
that for additional context, like my mom is now one of the top real estate agents in the state of South Carolina. My dad's had a construction company for almost 40 years. And so for us, it was just always an obvious thing, like we're going to find the real estate and we're going to build the accommodations, the rentals. And we're also, we love marketing and branding and sales. And so we're going to do that part too. And we're also going to operate this thing because we've got our name on it and we've got a luxury standard and really like a revolutionary idea for like what a vacation can look like, so like we've designed the whole experience and we've been reluctant to let that go. So we do everything from in the entire process. I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone else because it's a lot. And like we've got a really big team that helps us do that. But for us, that's what made sense. But now looking back in hindsight over these 10 years, like we have learned every square inch of the business, and everyone who embarks on some sort of real estate investment for short-term rentals or otherwise, you end up touching all those things at some point or another, or someone who works for you does. So like, there are pitfalls in each area of operations, sales, branding, real estate, construction, all that. And we just happened to sign ourselves up for all of them and stepped in those holes and learned those lessons and have the scars to prove it. So, I mean, I really think that we wish now that we could go back in time and like actually have someone who could tell us what not to do and what to do to get to where we are now much faster. And that was part of our motivation for starting to share what we know with other people.
Yes. And now it seems like you have many units, many tree houses. I was just curious, did it start that way or did you kind of start small and expand?
We have 23 villas right now. As of now, I mean, we're growing so fast that'll quickly be out of date. But it started with one tree house, and my dad and I built it by hand on the farm I grew up on. So my last name's Bolt. Bolt Farm Treehouse came from, we built a treehouse on Bolt Farm. We needed a name.
Super creative, I know.
It's so cool though. I love that story.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first deal was literally, okay, I already had the land. So that was an opportunity. And take you back in time. This is like, I had this idea in 2013, Treehouse Masters was a popular show on TV. Instagram and Airbnb were platforms that were emerging. And so I was like, in my mind, I was like, cool, Treehouse Masters really popularized this concept of like a luxury treehouse for adults. And now there's a platform I can sell it on, and there's a platform that I can promote it on. And I think this could work. My parents thought I was crazy. It took me 2 years to convince them to do this, and so I'm like, this is my first time doing like, okay, here's a market analysis and here's, what some other, there was like maybe at the time, like one or two, it was like a treehouse in Atlanta that was really popping off on the internet. And they had an impressive nightly rate. And so I convinced them to do it and sketched out the treehouse on a napkin,
like literally
in the kitchen. And then we got to work, and it took us about 6 months to build. And during the process of building that, I met Tori.
Oh,
And so
really?
then I was inspired by love, because I was like, okay, I've got, once in a lifetime opportunity to actually make this treehouse the place where we have our honeymoon, and like we can get married on the farm, and that, and that's what we did. But I knew as I was building the first treehouse, like I had in mind the epic experience I wanted to have during that precious time.
I want to ask, earlier you'd mentioned that you grabbed some scars along the way. Can we talk about a couple of those? What are some of the scars that you've acquired in this journey?
This is so great too, because the mastermind we were just at, Aaron Stokes said you should never learn from a leader who doesn't have a limp. And that was what he meant, was like, you need somebody who's like been through battle, had tough times.
Well, I like Ryan. We're like, listen, here's our love story. And you're like, nah, let's talk about pain.
Let's talk about the pain.
I forget the love story.
Great love story. My wife will love that part. Now, self-serving, I want to hear about the hard stuff.
Okay, let me add it. I'll talk about the pain. So soon after, there's a quick bridge though to get you from the love story to the pain. So had our honeymoon in the treehouse, magical, amazing. During that time, because I was working in news at the time, and on our honeymoon, like we realized this is our life's work. We want to make more places like this available for other people. People need this. And so fast forward, I quit my job. We sold our house. We took everything we owned to invest in growing the business, like launching this business.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found 35 acres just outside of Charleston, South Carolina, on this island called Wadmalaw, and built 4 beautiful tree houses. They were the ones featured on Netflix, actually. Each one was custom made, one of a kind. I mean, and it took everything in us to build it. I mean, we're living on the land with no infrastructure. I mean, it's rough.
In an RV. We lived in an RV.
Second year of marriage. And meanwhile, Seth is convincing me that I made a great decision by, quitting my job. My career path was like looking great. And he's like, no, entrepreneurship is where it's at. Here's why it's so amazing. You're going to love it. And then boom, we run into our first brick wall. And like, just as we're about to finish construction and open these tree houses, Charleston County adopted anti-Airbnb laws.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
Dang it.
About 5 seconds before you said it.
I know. We didn't know to be that tuned into, politics and what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, we were just like young and dumb, had no idea, didn't have mentors, didn't have a mastermind group to tell us these things. And so we didn't even see it coming. They adopted him. And then we're like, okay, well, what's just the next best thing that we can do? Fight the laws or get an exception. So we met with the county. They told us, the path to do that. And it seemed straightforward. Little did we know it was a very complicated, expensive political warfare type of path. And we spent about 1.5 years fighting for it and ultimately lost. I mean, it was heartbreaking. So we went from like putting our all into this place to having our business shut down, having like smear campaigns from the neighbors because they were just trying to run us out. I mean, the whole thing. It was. Yeah.
I mean, the NIMBY, the not in my backyard thing it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. Like when you get a group of people, especially on island, like island mentality, like even though it's like you're basically a peninsula, like you're not an island, like there's just, but it was a fierce group. Like you really have to know who you're up against when you're moving into an area. And the truth is, like, I think if you're developing a property like ours and it's in a remote area, like that's what makes it perfect. But there might also be people around who like they're there for the peace and quiet, and they just hear like, oh my gosh, a commercial resort coming in and it's going to be large, and there's the end of our peace and quiet. Let me rally the neighbors and like let's fight against this and try to shut it down before it even gets started. That's basically what we ran into.
Yeah, without knowing what the resort was centered around.
Yeah.
Did they ever come and talk to you before they did this campaign, by the way?
They did, actually. And like what was really confusing for me at the time was that some of the people who were the most vocally opposed to us told me, they're like, I actually love your concept. I acknowledge that this is light development. It's just that if they let you do this, you'll open the floodgates for anybody, so they were just like
they knew
yeah.
they knew it was successful and was
Mhm.
going to be incredibly successful,
Mhm.
and that it would inspire copycats and people to come and do the same thing. And this particular island was like very anti-business. Like
Mhm.
they literally systematically shut down every business on the island, which is pretty vicious and like some mafia stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But
Mafia stuff for retired people.
Yeah.
Because they're all, it's like where everyone goes
Well,
to retire something.
80 years old with their
I know.
canes.
Which
You're
is
not
terrible.
building here.
Yeah, because they have so much money and so much time on their hands. It's like, wow.
so think about it this way. I mean, because when you like, I almost think there's 100% chance of failure for people who are doing like, glamping, outdoor luxury type businesses, because if you've not been like most people who do what we do with short-term rentals, like they're new to short-term rentals. They haven't always done it. It hasn't always been a popular thing. So I would venture to guess that there's almost a 100% chance of failure, because when you look at us, like we had everything else going for us, but we just missed that one thing. And the truth is that one thing could be whatever your weak link in the chain is. And
Right.
it can break your business.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave up everything. You sold your house. You put everything into this 35 acres in building this. And now the law is passed. You fail to fight it. And also the neighbors don't want you there. So take us through the next step. I'm dying to know what happened next.
Curl up into fetal position, close our eyes and cry. No. And the timing was
for an evening.
For an evening, and then get over it. No. So we got over it. We're like, hey, next play. What do we do next? Let's try to sell this property, which was also really challenging because you can't run a business on it. And so, but let's start over. Like we came to a really difficult point in a crossroads of like, do we quit? I think most people would at this point, or do we believe in ourselves and the concept and the mission so much and just know that it's in the wrong place?
Because I mean, we did have people say, well, you got a great idea, just go do it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But like we were at that point, like, out of money, and the thought, like we knew how grueling that 2 years was to like take a piece of land from raw to building multiple houses, getting all the critical infrastructure in place, assembling the team, everything else like that. I can't tell you how daunting it was to think, okay, we'll have to start over and do this 2 years of work again somewhere else. If we find a place, if we can get, a bank to give us the money to do it again after falling on our face.
Yes. And also, how did you sell a property with multiple tree houses on it
That was my next question.
if it can't be used as a resort? Who bought that?
Yeah.
Did you sell it?
It's not ideal to develop a commercial property that loses its commercial viability. You can't operate it commercially, but also it doesn't work residentially because like, the tree houses weren't intended to be long-term dwellings with like, a freezer and a laundry facility and stuff like that. So that was tough. And it really took a lot of creative marketing. I mean, all this, like we had the year from hell in 2019, before everyone had the year from hell in 2020. But the pain we were able to solve in 2020 was like, there were so many people who had planned international honeymoons and they couldn't go. So now we were like, well, the only thing we can legally do is rent these things out for 31 days minimum. So we're going to give you, a month for the price of a week or two, and basically give them the ability to have extended time. It was a large property, beautiful, inspiring miles of nature trails. So like it was a great alternative for people. And so we basically filled it with people who, going back to the honeymoon thing, like they were the people that were feeling the pain the most of 2020 and those travel restrictions.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Did you end up selling that property and now buying the one you're at now?
We did, but we sold the property actually after we bought the property we have now in Tennessee.
Yeah, I like
sometimes
that.
You can't just like wait to make your next move until, everything falls into place and makes perfect sense. It's like, you got to just keep moving.
You do.
So we knew we got to keep going. We're going to sell it. It's listed. We're doing all the right things, but like, we cannot wait. We need to do our next thing, get revenue running again. Yep. And so we started the search for land in Tennessee. We knew we wanted to be in Tennessee for so many reasons. It's such a gorgeous state. It's very business friendly. My family lives there. like Seth's there all the time with Need to Breathe. And so we knew we wanted to be in Tennessee. And then we're like, why in the world are we looking for land in Tennessee and not living there? And so we just picked up and moved in with my parents. They have a barn dominium. So this, like, we've never lived in a traditional home together. It's always been something really funky, but we moved in with my parents. It was during the pandemic, and we started the search for land, doing our plans, like mapping everything out. And I found this gorgeous property. We found it together. Seth first found the area on Google Earth, just looking at the geology, I guess. And then, because we're on a rift valley. It's really unique. We're here on a mountain, and then there's a 6 mile wide valley, and then another plateau right directly across from us. It's really unique. They say you can even see it from space.
You can.
And so we found it and honed in. I'm like, okay, we got to check this out. So you guys won't believe this, but we started with 18 acres here, and we paid less than $250,000 for it.
Man.
With this view, and it's so crazy.
Yeah.
You should tell them what it looks like today.
Yeah. So now we have almost 55 acres, a mile of bluff frontage. So imagine a cliff and a mountaintop. So like we'll always have great views, and we didn't have to cut down a whole bunch of trees. Typically, if you build on top of a hill, you got to cut down like a football field of trees. Yeah. And then right out the front window, it looks horrible for a long time. So it's we couldn't have found a better location. We obviously, having experienced all that pain from a zoning type issue, we found an area where there's no zoning. There's they welcome the economic impact that we're going to have. So we've gotten nothing but support from Marion County. And the challenge though was like how to convince a bank to give us money to start again when it was such a big business failure. Mm-hmm. And the way that we did it was pretty creative. We started living on the property. Basically, like we found it end of May. We had it under contract within a week, and the owner was, we just said, hey, can we camp out here some in like a tent or a little RV. We started camping on a tent, laying it all out before we had bought it, kind of just like proving out the concept. Tori's family had this old like junky camper from like the 90s, like a little RV tin can thing. And so we moved that out to the property and started living in that. But it was so bare bones and we were so broke that I remember having like a coffee cup from McDonald's, and I learned that like those last for about 7 days. Like you can reuse one for about 7 days, and then it failed.
Honestly,
but we were using that time to plan, dream, and like build a website and like get some renderings done for what we wanted to build, and to talk to our audience that we had started to build on Instagram. So we're just going out, each day and saying, look at this place. What do you guys think? And engaging our fans, and started building, momentum and excitement about the location of the property. Mm. And we were going to do an SBA loan because that would be the vehicle that would decrease the risk for the local bank we were going to work with enough that they would do the deal. Mm-hmm. So literally it was 2020. We are approaching like holiday season. And mm-hmm. like, I'm thinking like, okay, the wallets have been closed all year long because there's so much uncertainty in the world. They're about to open for, between like Black Friday and Christmas. And we had made zero money that year. And we had lost money because we were still having to upkeep the property in Charleston, keep it, try to sell it, all that. And so I told Tori, I was like, if we could somehow make like pre-sell some reservations for 2021 and make like $500,000, that would be a game changer for us. And so we used the renderings, we built a website. Listen, all this is happening in this little tin can RV, and it's just the two
scrappy.
of us.
Where'd you get your internet?
There's actually amazing internet here.
Okay.
The two things on the property were powered in gigabit internet. So we were lucky there. And we put an offer out there and ended up selling almost $1 million in reservations.
Wow.
Whoa.
Before we owned the land, which is
unheard of.
Very aggressive, but like that's we were grasping for straws at that point. Like we knew we had an amazing concept. We knew we had that it was going to be amazing for our fans and followers and stuff. And they, there was pent up demand there. They have support, but they could see the vision. So basically it was kind of like dreaming and dreaming out loud and telling people what we were going to do before we did it. And the banker called and was like, he goes, "Hey, there is a lot of money coming into your account. And last I checked, like, you guys don't even own the land yet. So I just thought I should call and figure out, like, what's up?" And I was like, "Sid, I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do, man." I was like, "People want this. I'm telling you, we're onto something here." And the bank ended up financing the entire loan.
Oh,
that is
amazing.
the ultimate strong arm move from you.
So,
Proof.
Yeah, here.
were you able to honor the reservations from COVID? That's what I'm dying to know next. Were there any restrictions that prevented those from, being delivered?
Well,
For the Charleston property?
well, for here, I mean, because during 2021, it was still locked down, but like
True.
we were being in nature, being that these accommodations are spaced out across.
So it was all
the country.
good. No problem with that.
Yeah.
Like, what did they call
We
it?
opened
Like,
in June, the distancing.
yeah, social distancing.
Social distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could be socially distanced here. So
Amazing.
So each tent was more than 6 feet apart.
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So
Good.
did everything go smoothly with the build phase? Because now you're up against like a timeline. Like so often in real estate, you could have a really great deal, but then it takes longer in construction, right? So then your holding cost is longer. And for you guys, you had reservation like dates, I'm sure, planned, right? So you really had an important timeline to go. How did the construction process go?
Yeah. So you asked, did it go smoothly? Of course not. Of course not. Everything that could go wrong did. No, I'm just kidding. But it was bumpy. It was a bumpy ride there. And I'll try to like keep this as condensed as possible because it was quite the ride. But basically we found out on day one that we were supposed to break ground that our GC was playing us and actually had zero plans in place. Like we saw him like negotiating with framers in the parking lot. They hadn't even established a price. And we're like, dude, you told us this was done weeks ago. Like, this is crazy. And so we fired him on the day that we were supposed to break ground and then like quickly got a replacement. But again, being in a remote location, it was hard to get someone who could give us like their, daily attention. And that's what we needed to be someone's priority. It just wasn't going to happen. So we worked with someone for their license and they oversaw the project. But on a day-to-day basis, it was me and Seth, like project manager, like quality control. We were just running
site
it.
supervisor.
We were just running it and getting crews out here like as fast as we possibly could, enticing them to stay long and work late with beer and tacos if they stayed till 6, like just whatever it took. And it worked out. But you get hit with weather and rain and all these things, and because we're building in winter, and so it was definitely a challenge. We ended up being about 6 weeks delayed, but in the big scheme of things, still a win. We built 10 units in 6 months.
Oh yeah. Well, 6 weeks is not terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the moment it can make you feel very antsy, but that's definitely a better delay than many of mine that I've had just on a simple single family house. So that's fantastic. Love that you guys made the quick decision to fire the contractor. I feel like trust is so important. And a lot of times it's easy to overlook like a white lie here or there, but it's just like gives me a feeling that if you're going to white lie about something, how's the rest of the process going to go? What else are you not telling the truth about? So felt like you guys had really good judgment in that scenario.
Yeah.
But that was probably not an easy. I'm speaking from the perspective of I have not fired a contractor fast enough, and it did come back to bite me. How did you guys know that like got to do this, and what did that feel like having that conversation that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of smoke that you have to cut through because they're going to say what they need to say to try to protect the business. But we basically flushed that out very quickly and then made the decision that we needed full-time focus if this was going to get done. And that was the genesis of our strategy to have in-house oversight on construction. It's like we're continuously building, and strategically, we want to be the fastest and the best developer in this space. And we're doing that because obviously, from a financial side, from an investment side, like the sooner you can get heads in beds after you start spending cash, to build the structures, the more efficient you are, the less carry cost you have. So for us, I mean, we've gotten to the place where literally on this last deal, having our in-house construction, like the bank was just doing their thing, doing their due diligence, but ultimately to me feels like dragging their feet. And I'm like, gosh, are we ever going to close on this loan? Like we both want to do it. Like, and meanwhile, I'm like, we're not going to stop growing. And so we just self-funded essentially the construction of 5 houses. And then, so I think within a week after closing the loan, we already had revenue flowing, and we were fully reimbursed and everything.
Right. Man, that's so cool. It reminds me here in Austin, there's people that are doing well with Airbnbs, but it seems like, because there's tons of like bachelor parties that come here all the time and they want a cool place. It seems like the people that do the best have really put like an unbelievable amount of creativity and like uniqueness into their property. Think like, not just having a pickleball court, but like the whole paint job is themed Texas football, and it's like very well thought out and stuff. And obviously what you've created was so special because it was for your specific purpose, of celebrating your marriage, and you wanted to create that for others. Is that, you think, totally like absolutely necessary for any type of short-term Airbnb type place?
I can speak to that. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to, in order to run a short-term rental, but I think it's what sets you apart from being good to exceptional. I think that's what sets you apart from 60% occupancy to 90 plus. People really care about experiences. It's easy enough to find a place to stay, but they'll spend more money if they know they can have an experience. And I always, surprise people when I say, I'm not in the business of selling accommodations or rooms. They're like, you're not? I'm like, no, we're selling experiences. People aren't buying a dome for 3 nights. They're buying rest and reconnection. And so if you cut corners, your guests feel that. And so I would definitely encourage someone, if they're really leaning in to their short-term rental business, go the extra mile to make it really experiential.
Yeah. It's a supply and demand function, right? What I think the pain that a lot of Airbnb owners are feeling right now is that in 2021, everyone got the idea to buy a property to rent it out. And so the supply like tripled, and the demand couldn't keep up with that. So now it's just less occupancy for everyone. And so, maybe you're lucky and you're in a market where you can demand a high price because there is a short supply in that area and it doesn't really require that much creativity from you, and you can get away with that for a time. But the way capitalism works is like, your margin is other people's opportunity, and they're going to see that, and they're going to come in and they're going to take advantage of that. So my philosophy from the beginning has been like, okay, we started out in the glamping space. It was just a rustic tree house. I don't even think we had air conditioning at the time. There was no insulation in the walls. It was truly like a tree house, but a very, well decorated and like upscale experience that had a lot of things. But I was like, I want to quickly, like, I can see how this is going to grow. And it's basically going to be that each year it gets more and more competitive. And that's exactly what's happened. So I was like, let's just be the penthouse suite of glamping from the downbeat in order to get ahead of that competition, to set a really big high bar and to establish our brand as the luxury, penthouse suite of glamping. And now I think we've blown the roof off of that, because like glamping is it probably more confusing than anything if you apply that label to Bolt Farm, because it's really luxury. It's luxury outdoor hospitality.
Yeah, you don't get heated marble floors with glamping,
Right.
Well, if the sun is shining, you might.
As we're kind of wrapping up, tell me a little bit about how you could help somebody like myself who actually tried Airbnb in downtown Indianapolis and just had a couple of bad experiences where, hey, like the cleaning person didn't come in, and then that led to a bad review, like lost the superhost status. And I thought, well, I could just make the same money, long-term rental, and I totally shut down, my Airbnb account. Tell me about, how you guys might be able to help somebody like that.
Well, I think there's certainly a number of people that if they don't really have it in them, and like they don't feel like they were born to do this, they probably should just sell their house to someone who needs a house and just like exit and get a different, invest elsewhere. There's obviously real estate is a great vehicle for investment. There's no doubt about that. But, I think a lot of people get into it thinking like, oh, this will be great and we'll make some extra money. But like they have no idea what it's going to take to just administrate. Like, I mean, you're getting like questions from people on a regular basis. Your phone's constantly going off just about, and you have to answer those just to get the booking. Then they have more questions after they've done it. And then they have more questions when they're on property. So like, I think there's a lot of things that people don't realize there's going to be. And then, yeah, sure, you can do like a co-management type thing or whatever, but then before you know it, like, you're just not making any money, you know, and why are you doing it? And people are possibly destroying your asset. And like over time, there's going to be some crisis events where like you lose and you're just not going to be profitable on this. So I think we help people get very clear on their goal, and also with, you know, we talk about all the different ways in which, so it's like a combination of warning them about what not to do, and then showing them exactly how we've done it, letting them look under the hood of our business. The thing is, like, we're doing these workshops at our place here.
Oh, amazing.
And so it's not like, this is not a classroom. This is not some online course that's just like theory. Like, this is happening feet away from you, and you can see it in person. You can see, you know, we take you on a tour on every single one of our different accommodations, you know, answer questions about how they were built, and how we operate them, how we have efficiency, how we staff, how we recruit, how we build. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you don't have the people to run your business, like, it's all going to be on you, and it's a heavy weight to carry. And honestly, because we've experienced the pain of shouldering all that ourselves, like, I don't want that for other people, because the truth is, most people are investing in real estate for freedom. You know, they want financial freedom, they want time freedom, and you can quickly find yourself in a situation where you have neither. And and you can have neither for years, the way that we did, unless you have a really good plan to make sure that doesn't happen to you. And that's
well, this is perfect, because I already wanted to come out anyway. But if I could come out and learn something, that would make it even better.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
And we've got a spot here too. So like, we're a couple in business together. We're like partners in every sense of the word. And there are a lot of couples out there that are in this together. We love that. Also, sometimes it's like, maybe it's just one person is, you know, they're solo, or, but we'll say like, hey, bring your spouse, and they can enjoy the spa the whole time. They'll love it too. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Where can I go to find information on that workshop?
Yeah, just go to our website, boltfarmtreehouse.com/STR workshop. There's a tab right at the top, and there's a little video that shows you a glimpse into the last workshop, and you can hear also directly from attendees about their experience too.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay, great. I'll definitely want to check that out.
The Haywoods are coming. Just get ready.
All right.
At the same time.
Yeah, that's so good.
Anything else you want to leave with people who are listening and, you know, may want to do this?
Well, I would say something that I've observed is, like, we're at the point now where we want to grow through acquisition. But a lot of the different sort of outdoor hospitality venues that have been built and are up for sale are unbuyable. Like, we wouldn't buy them because, you know, they've painted themselves into a corner with what they've done. They didn't have a great plan to start with. And so part of our decision to start, you know, workshops and a mastermind group and like one-on-one coaching is that we want to find our people who we can, for some of them, we'll probably, you know, we'll either partner with them eventually or we'll buy their place. But like, for us, this is a way to really nurture and make the industry look more like our brand, so that we can either have them be affiliate properties or buy those properties. But like, our fastest way to long-term growth is through acquisition. And there's a lot of people that want to build something. They may not want to own it forever. Or if they do, they may just need our help, because we have got tons of traffic. Like, I mean, just millions of dollars on a weekly basis, and abandoned carts even that we could be sending to people's way to fill their rooms. So there's a lot of value we can add, and we're in this for life. You know, we love real estate. We love this business. I mean, the ability to more than just have like a viable business, but like being in the business of transformation. Like, when you can have meaningful outcomes for people at scale. Our mission is like, we want to have 100,000 people on an annual basis, coming through our doors and receiving all the value that they can from what we've created through the experience. And it extends beyond just their stay here with us. Like we're building things right now to where like literally, whether it's like the executive that wants to have an optimized health journey and continues that, starts at our place but continues that, or couples that know, hey, we've got to invest in ourselves, especially if you're like executives or high worth people or high output people, you lead teams, like you're only as good as the strength of your relationship, the strength of you internally. So generational impacts are happening and are possible for the people who visit us, because the stronger parents mean stronger kids. Stronger executives mean stronger teams, and like we've got our work cut out for us right now in America. We've got tons of potential and opportunity, and leadership is going to be the thing that gets us there. So we're grateful to be playing a role there in helping those leaders be the best that they can be.
Wow, that's amazing. Is that part of the same workshop or is that a different program?
Those are different programs for our guests.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. For the guests.
Yeah.
Wow. It sounds incredible. You really have created an experience. Holy cow. That's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad I asked if there was one more thing. And that's really cool. You're at the stage where you could actually start growing through acquisition. It's very exciting. You could partner with somebody and you could help them while helping your brand grow as well. And like for somebody like me, I'm just not a designer. So it's like overwhelming to think about my ability to design something like so incredible. But if you guys are able to help that out and be a partner there, that definitely makes me feel more confident being able to do something like that.
If you go to the very bottom of our website, we also have this link, and it's called Got Land, like the barn from like the Got Milk campaign of like the 2000s or whatever. And it basically, you go there and it tells you the types of properties we're looking for, and you can submit your property. Yeah. So now we get like realtors and stuff, like they're aware of our brand. They meet a property and they're like, you should submit this, or they'll submit it.
Yes.
And now, but the thing is like, we're pretty inundated with that. And so the workshops and the mastermind group are ultimately like our way of vetting those properties, meeting those people, seeing if they're people that we want to do a deal with. Because you're right, there are a lot of people who are like, man, I've got the perfect place for it, but like either I don't want to do operations, or I don't know what to build, or like a lot of them are like, can you just do what you do on our land and run it, and I'll pay for everything, and here's the land and that kind of thing. But obviously it would be a full-time job for us to just tour the country looking at vetting every deal. So the workshops really give us an opportunity to meet people. They come to us, and we can tell who we want to work with and partner with, and we help them. We go ahead and start the process. Cool. If that's what you're thinking, do these next steps and then
circle back.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Well, Seth and Tori, thank you so much. Super inspiring to see what you've created. So glad we got to meet a week ago and have you guys on this podcast. Ryan, do you have any other comments or big takeaways from the conversation?
Super inspiring. My only big takeaway is like a guy like me, Megan and I, our relationship is super strong, but we have 4 kids as well. So when we travel as a family. Do you guys have accommodations for people with a lot of children?
You're out of luck, unfortunately. No, we are we're a couple adults only place for couples, and I hate to say that for your family, but it's a good excuse to take a little bit
at their
invest in your relationship. Mm-hmm. And I'll keep this super quick, but we started that way because it started with our honeymoon, and then there was a short season where we were like, well, there's people like Ryan who want to bring their kids. Let's try that. And then it was just like, wow, this is not us. And that's one of the dangers. Like when you try to be all things to all people, you really lose who you are. Yeah. So we're like, okay, no, we're a romantic getaway for adults. So
well said.
The importance
kids Ryan and come out with your wife.
Yeah. And the truth is you guys need that alone time. Like that's when you can recharge, refill the cup. And that's the feedback we got from our guests. I mean, we frequently, several times a week, we're talking to our guests. Like we stay very, very connected with them and keep our finger on the pulse that way. And that's the feedback we got, is that like, hey, for some, it is the first time that they've gotten away from kids in years because they've been running businesses and they've been being parents. And a lot of them say things like, we had no idea how much we needed this, or, this might have added 25 years to our marriage.
Yeah.
Or, I rediscovered my best friend because, since their honeymoon or since that last meaningful getaway, they haven't had that opportunity to just like, be friends and be a couple and not have to be, wrangling 4 kids.
Be a task. Thank you guys for going into the scars in depth. That to me is where a lot of value, the whole story, this whole thing has been super valuable, super inspiring. And sometimes for people, hearing those struggles is what encourages them to say, okay, they went through all of these things. We can expect to go through these things, but be prepared to step through them and move on. So thank you for diving into that. And it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Thanks, guys. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.